Greetings all, Mark C. here from RadicalU.com. That's RadicalU.com, where together we are waking up the world. Now today I'd like to hone in on that catchphrase that I use, together we are waking up the world. Yeah, I know it sounds kind of pithy and cute. Well, at least I think it sounds cute. But there's real intentionality, or to put it another way, there's a method to my madness. Now I want to be upfront on where I'm coming from here. As I've mentioned in previous videos, one part of my mission, which I've emphasized, is to help support each other with feelings of safety while also helping to discover the true nature of who we are: creative, loving, and free. And as this work evolves, there is an equal mission to question the conventional wisdom, the unexamined assumptions of our culture. By questioning the many premises, well, you get the idea, which our Western society is built upon, we can then take steps to wake up not only to ourselves, but to the world around us. Now, try as we might, we cannot divorce the personal from the socio-economic, political context in which we live. All right, here's some conventional wisdom for you. You know, that we're all separate beings, kind of living in our individual spacesuits, striving and hurtling toward the next culturally approved reward, many times to the detriment of our health and well-being. Now, some of you may have heard of Dr. Gabor Mate. He's a Hungarian-Canadian physician and author. He has a background in family practice, practiced many years in Vancouver, I believe, with a special interest in childhood development and trauma. And I've linked his website below for more information. He's written a number of books, a couple of which I've had a chance to look at are The Realm of Hungry Ghosts and When the Body Says No. And he touches on how these cultural pressures have had a real impact on how we view ourselves on an individual level, right down to how our bodies address the stress and strains to the external world. One story that he relates is about an obituary of a beloved physician in Toronto who was a real workhorse, apparently. The man was dying of cancer, I believe, but the obituary described how he worked tirelessly right up to the point of his demise. The obit was practically glowing about how this man worked himself literally to death. Mate's story here is a prime example of the absurdity of our culturally approved norms and mores of grinding work, even at the expense of our health. Oh my God, we're seeing this today in many parts of the United States, where I live, on our response to the pandemic. The not so subtle subtext is get back to work, sometimes at great peril to one's well-being. Now, for many of us, we're simply asked to fend for ourselves, reinforcing the culturally approved idea that we're on our own. Well, what we have here is a culture which approves of alienation on a number of levels. Mate, quoting Karl Marx, yes, that Karl Marx, lays out 4 ways we find ourselves separate or alienated from the world. We're separate from nature. Historically, we believe that we're the masters lording over nature. And now, of course, we see the results of that with a climate crisis practically out of control. We're separate from each other. You know, I have observed how fractured we are from our commonality. And it's not conspiratorial to see that there are very powerful forces out there with an agenda of capturing and maintaining power while dividing us at the same time. It's the old divide and conquer strategy. It's as old as time. We're also separate from ourselves. Now, I've done a number of videos on how our social conditioning moves us away from who we are to someone who we think others will approve of. Now, if you think I'm being hyperbolic about this, take a gander on social media and then check back in with me. From what I've seen, I've read, and felt experientially, however, we are actually wired for empathy, love, and compassion. It's just it's been covered over. Capitalism, for example, would rarely approve of these virtues. In fact, they don't. And we're also lonely. And the pandemic has amplified this loneliness. Recently, a Harvard study, which I will link below, revealed that 36% of respondents reported feeling serious loneliness over the last month, either frequently or all of the time, and an additional 37% reported feeling lonely occasionally. So that makes about 73% of people, I think, believe in the United States, or at least of those surveyed, which is a sample, of experiencing some form of loneliness. Now, this is not a new phenomenon. The pandemic didn't invent loneliness. Philip Slater, writing in 1970 in his epic book, The Pursuit of Loneliness, talks about one significant and conventional way we often combat that loneliness, which is to buy things. He said, and I quote, "Our economy is based on spending billions to persuade people that happiness is buying things, and then insisting that the only way to have a viable economy is to make things for people to buy so that they'll have jobs to get enough money to, wait for it, buy things." These are structural issues baked into the very fabric of how the world operates. Now, paradoxically, the good news is that the pandemic has revealed the structural problems, including the glaring inequities in our economy and the tepid responses governments around the world, and especially here in the US, to act with humane compassion. The Great Resignation, as it's been dubbed here in the United States, is a healthy response of folks who no longer want to work for poor wages and intolerable working conditions. The rise of strikes and the call for unionization in the US at least tells me that there are many folks are waking up to what really matters. They're justifiably mad as hell. They're not going to take it anymore. But more than that, they're taking concrete, constructive action. This may result in not only changing the narrative, which we're hoping it does, and I believe it's beginning to, but also creating new structures where cooperation, empathy, and yes, love become the new norms. You know, the stakes are pretty high here. We know we're not on a sustainable path, given that we've always done things so that there's now a renewed energy and a renewed urgency to act. So we wake up to the nature of who we are, and as we're doing this, again, the nature of who we are, that we're loving, free beings first and foremost, I believe a necessary corollary to that awakening is to become more aware of what kind of world we wish to live in. Now, quoting Mate again, I'm doing a lot in this video, but he's worth it. In his amazing book, When the Body Says No, he lists the 7 A's to healing. I think these suggestions, if you will not only work personally for us, but as a society as well. I'm going to list them briefly here, but you can check him out in the book, When the Body Says No, the 7 A's. The first A is acceptance. Acceptance of the truth of what is. Not blind resignation to what is, but an understanding of what we're facing in order to do something about it. Related to acceptance is awareness. Quoting Dr. Mate, full awareness would mean that we would regain our lost capacity to receive emotional reality, and that we are ready to let go of the paralyzing belief that we are not strong enough to face the truth about our lives. Anger, in the right proportion, I might add. This does not, of course, mean blind rage. You could see my other video on dealing with anger in challenging times for a little bit of a sampler on that. But this anger is a more of a discerning eye that we no longer have to live in a world where, for example, breathing clean air and drinking clean water is only a luxury for some people. Autonomy, understanding both for the self and society what is permissible and what crosses the line. In other words, developing healthy boundaries. The next one, attachment, healthy attachment. Not dependency on others to make us feel happy, but a very human mutual desire for connection and understanding, to feel in our bones that we are not alone. Assertion. Again, to quote Dr. Mate here, he can say it better than I can. Assertion is a positive valuation of ourselves, independent of our history, personality, and the abilities or the world's perception of us. In other words, we are here because we are here. Period. Full stop. And last but not least, affirmation. When we affirm, we make a positive statement towards something of intrinsic value. So as you hear these 7 A's of healing, we have the capacity to wake ourselves up both individually and as a society. This is a long way of saying that as we awake, we do so in community and not alone. And that is an important, radical step in our healing. Okay, thanks for stopping by today. And if I can be of assistance for wherever you are on your own healing journey, you can reach me at aradicalyou.com. That's aradicalyou.com. And please, in the old YouTube tag here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for upcoming videos. I'll see you in the next video. Until then, be well and take time for self-care. And don't forget, only together we can wake up the world. Namaste.